The air in the sunroom was poisoned with entitlement. Sarah Maxwell Zhao, the billionaire's wife, stood over Mei Zhao, who was trembling like glass. The sound of the antique teapot hitting the marble was the starting pistol for disaster. Aisha Jamil, the household manager, stepped in, her body a quiet shield, but Sarah only saw a uniform. Sarah said, sneering, "You think that pathetic moral code of yours means anything here in my house? Go back to cleaning, you insignificant servant. You interfere again, and your life in L.A. is over." Aisha, calm, looking down at the broken pieces, "I've seen women like you fall before, ma'am. And when they hit the ground, they learn what insignificant really means." Aisha turned away, walking toward the kitchen, outwardly defeated. But beneath her calm exterior, her resolve was deadly. Sarah had just signed her own termination papers, and she didn't even know the man she married was about to walk through the front door. By the time Sterling Bing Zhao stepped into the mansion, calling out happily that his business deal had closed, Aisha was already loading the gun. He just didn't know yet that the target was his wife. Aisha Jamil was 28 years old and carried the quiet strength of a woman who had learned the hard way that kindness often goes unrewarded. She was a private household manager from the historic West End of Atlanta, now navigating the gilded cages of Los Angeles, working for the ultra-wealthy. Her current employer was Sterling Bing Zhao, a Chinese-American tech billionaire, and his wife, Sarah Maxwell Zhao, an American socialite whose platinum blonde aesthetic hit a core of steel and entitlement. Aisha was a professional, but she was also a daughter of the South, taught that you never, ever stand by while an elder is disrespected. This single rule was about to collide violently with her career, her safety, and the fragile peace of the Zhao mansion in Bel Air. The air in the sunroom was thick with the scent of lilies and the ozone of pure, unrestrained rage. Sarah stood over the frail, elderly woman, Mei Zhao, Bing's mother, who was visiting from Beijing. Mei, in her 70s, spoke almost no English and moved with the slow, deliberate grace of age, which Sarah clearly mistook for defiance. Sarah's voice was a low, venomous hiss that broke the afternoon quiet. "I told you, you selfish old woman. My staff will not touch your ridiculous tea set. This is my home, not some cluttered temple. Do you understand? Your son might tolerate your peasant habits, but I certainly will not." Sarah's perfect, manicured hand shot out, not toward Mei, but toward the small, antique clay teapot Mei held, knocking it hard. The delicate ceramic spun out of Mei's grasp and shattered against the imported marble floor. Mei gasped a soft, wounded sound, tears instantly springing to her eyes, less for the teapot and more for the raw, calculated cruelty of the gesture. Aisha, who had been cleaning a silver tray in the adjacent dining room, heard the crash and the immediate, terrifying silence that followed. She knew the line had just been crossed. She ran into the room, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Sarah was leaning in, her face inches from the terrified Mei's, her beautiful features twisted into a mask of pure hate. "You are a burden, and I will not have you here much longer. You will listen to my rules, or you will leave." Sarah snarled. The sight of the powerful American woman threatening the defenseless elder was too much for Aisha. Mei flinched, raising her thin arms as if to ward off a blow. "Ma'am, that is enough," Aisha said, her voice steady and low despite the adrenaline surging through her veins. She stepped swiftly and deliberately, placing her own body between Sarah and Mei. "I asked you to step away from Mrs. Zhao. You have broken one of her favorite possessions, and you have caused her considerable distress." Sarah froze, her rage instantly shifting focus, turning the full, frightening heat of her fury onto Aisha. Her eyes narrowed to cold slits. "How dare you interfere, you hired help? You are a servant. You are paid to clean, not to lecture me. Get out of my sight right now, or you are fired." "I won't move," Aisha stated simply. She gently took May's hand, feeling the old woman trembling, and shielded her from Sarah's looming figure. "I am here to ensure everyone in this house is treated with respect. And right now, Mrs. Zhao is the victim of your aggression." Sarah's face flushed a deep, alarming red. She let out a sharp, choked cry of pure indignation, lunging forward as if to push Aisha aside and get back to May. But Aisha held her ground, a quiet, immovable barrier of dark skin and sheer principle, forcing Sarah to stop just short of making physical contact. The tension was a suffocating pressure in the room, threatening to explode. A minute later, the front door of the mansion swung open with a bang, echoing through the silent halls. Sterling Bing, Zhao stepped into the foyer, back unexpectedly early from a business meeting in Silicon Valley. He called out, his voice cheerful, "Sarah, I'm home. The deal closed, darling. You won't believe the numbers." The cheer died in his throat as he walked toward the sunroom, stopping dead in the doorway. The quiet in the tableau before him, his wife, red-faced and panting, his mother shrinking back behind Aisha, and Aisha standing like a loyal guard, her whole posture one of grim defiance, was a silent scream. He didn't see a maid, he saw a shield. Sarah immediately seized the opportunity, her face melting into an expression of hurt and panic. "Bing, thank God you're here," Sarah cried, her voice cracking with manufactured tears. "Your mother was distraught, and this woman, this Aisha, she just went ballistic. She became aggressive, screaming at me, forcing her way between us. She's completely outlined, Bing, completely outlined." Bing's eyes flicked from Sarah's tear-stained face to Aisha's stoic, serious expression, and finally to his mother, who looked small and utterly defeated. He saw the shattered porcelain, and his chest tightened with confusion and immediate, agonizing conflict. He stood motionless, caught in a trap set by a lie he desperately wanted to believe. He had to know what really happened, but the immediate crisis was the sight of his mother's fear and the woman who had put herself in harm's way. This was only the beginning of the storm. Bing's briefcase dropped with a soft thud onto the expensive rug, the sound muffled yet severe in the silence. His face, usually calm and centered from years of making billion-dollar decisions, was a mask of confusion and deep panic. He walked slowly into the sunroom, his eyes fixed on his mother, May, who was still clutching Aisha's hand. He felt the crushing weight of having to choose between the American wife who represented his success and the mother who represented his roots. The moment he opened his mouth, Sarah darted forward, pulling his arm and directing his attention away from Aisha. "Bing, look at the mess. She caused a scene. I was simply telling your mother, gently, that the tea set was fragile and should not be placed on the antique table. And this maid, this stranger, she decided to attack me verbally. She shouted. She threatened me." Sarah's voice rose to a theatrical pitch, complete with quick, shallow breaths that signaled distress. Bing looked at the shattered porcelain. "Aisha, tell me what happened, please, right now," Bing demanded, his voice strained and low, his eyes avoiding contact with hers. He did not want to see the honesty he suspected in her face. May began speaking quickly in Mandarin, a torrent of frantic, unhappy words. "Tadasuela, tahan xiong," May pleaded, pointing a shaking finger at Sarah and then clutching her heart. "She broke it. She is cruel." Sarah immediately cut her off. "See, Bing? She's hysterical. It's cultural confusion. She's trying to say Aisha broke the cup. Honestly, darling, your mother needs more structured care than I can provide. She's getting aggressive with the staff." Sarah's masterful, quiet manipulation continued, painting the picture of May as the problem. Aisha watched the sickening pivot. She knew Sarah was counting on Bing's inability to understand his mother and his desire for an easy, peaceful solution. "Sir, that is a lie," Aisha said calmly, cutting through the noise. Your wife was yelling at your mother, calling her names and insulting her culture, right before she deliberately knocked the teapot from her hand. I stepped in to protect her from physical harm and verbal abuse. She never threatened me. She simply acted on her rage and entitlement. Bing looked from his wife, whose eyes were wide and tearful, to his maid, whose eyes were clear and unwavering. The contrast was startling. He knew Aisha was often quiet, never prone to outbursts, and deeply respectful. But the idea that his beautiful, beloved wife was a monster was too painful to accept. I don't believe this, Bing stammered, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. He was collapsing under the pressure, wanting to trust his wife's words, but unable to ignore the truth etched on May's face. Aisha, I'm sending you home for the rest of the day. Sarah, come with me. We need to talk. He turned away, his conflict pushing the truth out of sight. As Aisha walked to the door, she heard Sarah deliver the final, hateful whisper directed at her. You think you saved her? You just signed your own termination papers. I'll make sure you regret interfering. The following morning, the tension in the mansion was a tangible presence, cold and brittle. Aisha returned to work, finding a temporary peace in the structure of her duties. Bing had met Sarah 4 years ago at a tech gala in Miami. He was the quiet genius, suddenly rich and adrift in the dazzling noise of the American social scene. Sarah, a model-turned-influencer, was everything he was not. Loud, gorgeous, and supremely confident. She had zeroed in on his billions like a heat-seeking missile, convincing him that her image was the perfect packaging for his success. Their whirlwind marriage, which culminated in a lavish Malibu ceremony, was less about love and more about acquisition. Sarah immediately began replacing everything Bing owned: the art, the cars, even the furniture that was too simple. The only thing she couldn't discard was May, Bing's mother, who came to visit 6 months ago. May was an anchor to Bing's Chinese identity, a constant, silent reminder of a life Sarah found provincial and embarrassing. Sarah's attempts to modernize May's clothing, diet, and habits were relentless and often cruel, causing the first deep, internal cracks in Bing's life. He loved his wife, but he was starting to hate the person she was making him become. Today, Aisha cared for May in the garden. Bing had ordered a new, expensive tea set to replace the broken one, a move that pleased neither woman. Aisha prepared May's traditional herbal tea outside, away from Sarah's watchful eyes. May sat quietly, her small frame slumped, watching Aisha. In the shade of the gazebo, the two women formed an unspoken alliance. Aisha moved with gentle respect, pouring the tea, holding the cup steady for May's trembling hands. May gave Aisha a small, tight smile of pure gratitude. Xie, Aisha, May whispered, using the Chinese word for thank you. Ni shi haoren. You are a good person. Aisha simply nodded, her eyes warm. You're welcome, Mrs. Zhao. You just rest now. Nothing bad will happen to you while I'm here. But the quiet moment was interrupted by a sudden burst of malice. Sarah appeared on the patio, dressed in workout gear, but her mind was clearly not on exercise. She held her phone, her back to Aisha and May, speaking in a rapid, hushed tone that was impossible to ignore. Yes, the paperwork is done. I told you, I need this done before the anniversary party. The old woman is becoming a liability, and my access to the trust is restricted until she is declared incapable. Just ensure the overseas facility is secure and the temporary visitor visa is revoked. No loose ends, understood? I want full control of his assets, and she is the last obstacle. Aisha froze, the teacup halfway to May's lips. Deported? Nursing facility? Full control of assets? This wasn't just a feud. It was a cold, calculated plan for total betrayal. A cold, sick dread settled in Aisha's stomach. The conversation she'd just overheard was chilling, a stark confirmation that Sarah wasn't simply fighting with her mother-in-law, she was executing a financial takedown. The idea of May being labeled incapable and shipped off to a foreign facility to gain control of Bing's enormous wealth was monstrous. Aisha knew she had to act, but the danger of crossing Sarah had just spiked 1,000 times. Sarah moved quickly and professionally to try and create distance and doubt. Sarah returned from her supposed workout, her demeanor falsely sweet, but her eyes held a predatory edge. She approached Aisha while she was polishing a huge, ornate mirror in the main hall. "Aisha, a quick word, please," Sarah purred, holding a clipboard. "I filed a report about yesterday's incident, just for HR records, you understand. I noted your aggression and insubordination." Sarah then attempted a calculated step, a subtle attempt to fire Aisha by creating a disciplinary paper trail. "I'm putting you on probation immediately. Any further incidents, any at all, even a misplaced towel, and you are dismissed. I can't have staff that threatens the mistress of the house. You're lucky I'm not calling the police for assault, but I'll let it go this one time for Bing." Aisha remained perfectly still, her eyes meeting Sarah's reflection in a massive mirror. "I understand, ma'am. I will continue to perform my duties as hired, and I did not threaten anyone." She held Sarah's gaze, her quiet strength unsettling the aggressive woman. Sarah knew Aisha was smarter than she looked, and the confrontation had achieved the opposite of what she intended. It only solidified Aisha's resolve to stay. Aisha realized that getting fired would be the worst thing she could do, as it would leave May completely vulnerable to Sarah's scheme. Aisha spent the rest of the day meticulously cleaning the private office where Bing kept his personal papers. She was searching not for documents, but for a hidden camera, anything that might have recorded the earlier altercation. Bing was a tech magnate. There had to be security. She found nothing obvious. Later that evening, while Sarah was out at a benefit and Bing was working late, Aisha heard a sound, a faint, mechanical whirring, coming from a small, decorative air vent near the sunroom where the incident occurred. The true nature of the security system was a sudden, heart-stopping realization. She carefully pulled the cover off the vent and saw it, a tiny, high-definition camera, motion-activated and discreetly positioned to capture the entire sunroom. The camera's small, red recording light was blinking. It recorded everything, Aisha thought, her hand shaking. The truth is on that tiny disc. But accessing the video, without Sarah knowing, would be a near-impossible task, and Sarah could delete the footage at any moment. Aisha had to get to that camera immediately before Sarah returned. Aisha waited until the house was fully quiet, long past midnight. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she crept back to the sunroom, armed with a small tool kit from the garage. The covert operation to retrieve the security footage had begun. The mansion felt huge and silent, the kind of silence that amplifies every creak and shadow. She climbed onto a velvet chaise lounge, carefully reached into the vent, and, with painstaking effort, managed to disengage the miniature camera. The memory card was even tinier than she expected, a micro SD chip, holding the key to the entire terrible situation. She slipped it into the pocket of her work uniform, and then, using a dummy chip she bought earlier, she replaced the empty memory card in the camera, ensuring the red light was blinking, ready to record new, worthless footage. The next day, Aisha performed her duties with an anxious calm. The beautiful and essential bond she shared with May grew stronger. May, having witnessed Aisha's loyalty firsthand, was trying harder than ever to communicate. May followed Aisha around the house, watching her, a desperate need for connection in her eyes. Today, May used an old tablet to type simple Chinese characters and then translated them to English for Aisha, agonizingly slow but crucial communication. "Niao li kai ma?" May typed, "Are you going to leave?" Aisha read the English translation, her eyes softening. "No, Mrs. Zhao. I won't leave you. I promise." May teared up, reaching out to stroke Aisha's arm in a gesture of maternal relief and gratitude. Then, May's face suddenly became serious and frightened. She typed another message, a stark and simple warning. The nursing home is a dark cage. It is a death place. Help me. Tell Bing. May then pointed at Sarah's private office, making a gesture of cutting her own throat. Aisha now understood that May wasn't just scared of losing her home. She was terrified for her life. The stakes were impossibly high. Later that afternoon, the anxiety peaked as Sarah was suddenly home early, sweeping into the kitchen where Aisha was prepping lunch. Sarah walked directly to the air vent in the sunroom, looking up at it with a strange, calculating intensity. She pulled a chair over, stood up, and placed her hand on the vent cover. Aisha felt a wash of cold terror. She knew Sarah was about to check the camera. She held her breath, watching from the doorway. Sarah paused, then smiled thinly, satisfied by the steady red blink of the dummy camera. She got down, dusting her hands off. "Everything is where it should be," Sarah muttered, perhaps to herself, or maybe as a subtle, terrifying warning to Aisha. Aisha realized she was in a race against time. Sarah knew the camera was there, and she was checking on her tool. Aisha was holding the evidence, but she had no way to play the file, which was heavily encrypted by the expensive security system. She knew one person who could crack it, her childhood friend, Elias. But going to him meant leaving the safety of the mansion's walls and risking the chip being discovered on her person. If she was caught with the encrypted data, Sarah would ruin her life forever. Bing was a man who preferred spreadsheets over scenes, and the chaotic storm of emotion in his home had left him profoundly shaken. He sat in his study with Sarah, trying to process the clash between his wife's desperate tears and the quiet certainty in Aisha's eyes. Sarah, having regained her composure, was performing a flawless act of the aggrieved, loving wife. "I'm shattered, Bing. Truly, I've done everything to make your mother comfortable, but she hates me. And now your maid, this total stranger, is trying to drive a wedge between us. She's jealous. She wants money." Sarah turned the focus entirely onto Aisha, painting a picture of an aggressive, dangerous employee who is only looking for a lawsuit payoff. She referenced the written disciplinary report she'd fabricated, making it seem official and binding. "It's not about money for her, Bing. It's about power. She's trying to sabotage our marriage because she resents people like us. I can't live like this, darling. I shouldn't have to live in fear in my own home." Bing, worn down by his own guilt and the desire to protect his marriage, finally gave in to the easiest path, trusting the woman he loved or thought he did. He needed the noise to stop, and that meant silencing the truth. The following morning, Bing intercepted Aisha in the kitchen, his face set in a cold, distant mask she had never seen before. He avoided her gaze, focusing instead on a small speck on his floor. "Aisha, I've decided to keep you on staff, but only because my mother clearly trusts you. However, Sarah is my wife, and her comfort is paramount. I need this situation to end. So, this is a direct order. I need you to keep your distance from Sarah, and I need you to keep your distance from me, too. Communicate only through text message regarding scheduled duties. Do you understand? I need you to be invisible, Aisha. I need you to keep your distance." Aisha felt the sharp sting of betrayal, not because he was taking his wife's side, but because he was actively choosing blindness over the truth. She realized her loyalty counted for nothing compared to his bank account and his public image. May watched the exchange from the doorway, her eyes filling with tears, the look of profound sadness twisting in her face. May saw her son being fooled and was powerless to save him. The final, isolating blow of this interaction was Bing explicitly ordering Aisha to stay away from him, cementing Sarah's control. Aisha was now isolated, under strict surveillance, and still holding the small chip of truth in her pocket, knowing she had to save May alone, even if Bing wouldn't listen. Bing's order to be invisible was more than a professional setback. It was a devastating personal challenge. Aisha walked the vast, silent hallways, performing her tasks, wondering if she should simply cut her losses and leave. She had enough savings to survive while she found a less volatile job, and the risk she was taking for a family who wouldn't even hear her truth felt reckless. Why am I staying here? She asked herself constantly. They're not my problem. I should walk away before Sarah ruins me. This was the profound moment of doubt, the quiet struggle of the heart versus the head. But then there was May. May was not an assignment. She was a connection. Aisha went into May's suite to turn down the bed, finding May sitting on the patio, wrapped in a blanket, staring out at the ocean. As Aisha pulled back the silk duvet, she saw something tucked carefully into the pillowcase. It was a wrinkled piece of paper, torn from a notepad, written in careful, shaky English. The note read simply, Aisha, you not leave. If I go to cold place, I die. You're only good. Only good. The words were simple, almost childlike, yet they carried the weight of a lifetime of fear and despair. Aisha sat down heavily on the bed, clutching the note. This wasn't just a general fear. This was a plea from a soul who felt the icy hand of abandonment closing around her. May had seen Sarah's plan, the dark cage she had typed about earlier, and she knew Aisha was her last resort. The emotional struggle immediately ceased. Her dilemma wasn't about her job anymore. It was about saving a life. She remembered her grandmother's words back in Georgia. You stand up for the one who can't stand up for herself, even if your knees shake. Aisha looked at the tiny micro SD chip hidden in her pocket. She had the proof of the cruelty. She now had the motive of rescue. She would not quit. She would stay and fight, but she could not do it alone. She needed the technological genius of her friend Elias, and she needed to move the evidence out of the house immediately before Sarah decided to perform a random security check. She spent the rest of the afternoon planning her escape route and her cover story. Sarah was due to host a large charity dinner the next evening, a high-traffic event that would be the perfect cover. Aisha knew she had only hours left to act before May's fate was sealed forever. Sarah's celebratory mood was thinly veiled but undeniably present. The financial maneuver to isolate May and take control of Bing's assets was moving even faster than she had hoped. She had a private meeting with a shadowy immigration lawyer that morning, smiling as she took the final documents. The deportation plot had officially activated. The documents included the overseas nursing facility contract, stamped and finalized, and a temporary revocation order for May's extended U.S. visitor visa, citing health and safety concerns. This entire process hinged on getting May out of the country before being caught on. Sarah celebrated by immediately purchasing a new, ludicrously expensive diamond necklace, showing it off to Aisha as if daring her to comment. This was the quieter but equally malicious moment, rubbing her imminent victory in Aisha's face. You know, Aisha, I love a good deal. And this, Sarah purred, tapping the glittering stone, is a fantastic deal. Aisha felt sick, knowing the price of that necklace was May's freedom and possibly her life. Later that afternoon, a sudden announcement ripped through the house. Bing called Aisha to his study, standing rigidly next to Sarah. Aisha, I'm flying to Tokyo tonight for an emergency round of meetings. It will be 3 days. Sarah will be in charge of all household management in my absence. All of it. Bing didn't look at her, focused only on the paperwork in his hands. He was leaving his mother completely vulnerable to Sarah precisely at the moment the papers for her removal were signed. As Bing left for the airport, the house transformed. Sarah, no longer needing to maintain the pretense of a loving wife, began isolating May. She confiscated May's tablet, removing her ability to communicate in English with Aisha or anyone outside the house. She confined May to her bedroom suite, claiming May needed rest before her upcoming trip. The most terrifying action came next. Sarah ordered the two security guards to stand outside May's door, effectively making the gentle, elderly woman a prisoner in her own home. Aisha watched this happen, realizing that her time had run out completely. May was now just hours away from being declared incapable and shipped off to a place she rightly feared as a death trap. The next morning, the day of Sarah's charity gala, Aisha knew the risk was now equal to the reward. She had to get the encrypted memory card out and get it to someone who could read it. She put on a simple black dress, claiming she needed the day off to attend a family funeral, a lie she hated, but one that gave her a 24-hour window of freedom. Before leaving, she carefully retrieved the microSD chip, taping it beneath the jewel setting of a simple, silver pendant she always wore. A clean, simple way to hide the key to a billion-dollar conspiracy. She drove straight to the warehouse district in downtown Los Angeles, a place far removed from the manicured lawns of Bel Air. Her friend Elias, a brilliant but struggling coding student, was currently living and working in a shared artist loft there, attempting to launch a coding project. Aisha found him hunched over 3 glowing computer screens, surrounded by the organized chaos of a true hacker. He looked up, his eyes tired but bright. "Aisha, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." Aisha didn't mince words. She told him everything. The violence, the abuse, the secret wiretaps, the deportation papers, and the fact that Bing was tragically blind. Elias listened, his face moving from confusion to shock, then to outrage. A billionaire's wife planning a hostile takeover by deporting his own mother? That's next-level evil, Aisha. Even for L.A. Aisha then reached up, unclasped the pendant, and slid the tiny chip into his hand. "This holds a truth, Elias. The raw, video truth of what she did to May. But it's encrypted with Bing's company's security protocols. If anyone can break it, it's you." Elias held the tiny chip, a piece of plastic holding a devastating, life-altering secret. He looked at Aisha, seeing the fear and the fierce moral conviction in her eyes. If this video gets out, it explodes their whole world. This isn't just a rich family drama, Aisha. This is federal fraud, immigration violations, and elder abuse. Are you ready for this to go public? Aisha nodded once, firmly. Betrayal this deep is hard to believe. Have you ever felt betrayed by someone close? Tell me in the comments. Guilty or not guilty? Elias took a deep breath, recognizing the gravity of the task. He knew he was about to risk everything to help his friend save a woman he'd never even met. Elias plunged into the task, his fingers flying across the keyboards. He immediately recognized the encryption, a proprietary, military-grade protocol designed by Bing's own security team for his tech firm. The good news was that Elias understood the logic. The bad news was that cracking it would take time, and time was the one thing May didn't have. "This is heavy, Aisha. This isn't some basic password. This is a fortress built by a tech genius," Elias murmured, looking at the code scrolling across his screens. While Elias worked, Aisha used a brief moment of freedom to check on May. She risked a quick, discreet video chat using a burner phone she bought, connecting to an old, hidden iPad of May she knew Sarah hadn't found yet. The connection was shaky, but May's tired face appeared, immediately lighting up with desperate hope. "Nihue Jio Ama?" May whispered. "Will you save me?" Aisha forced a smile. "I promise, Mrs. Zhao. We're working fast. You just be strong." Before the call ended, May gave a small, shaky thumbs up, a sign of her fragile hope, a low moment of loving connection in the middle of chaos. The moment of peace shattered when Aisha's burner phone rang with an unknown number. It was Sarah. "Where are you, Aisha? I need you back here now. The event starts early, and I need you to set up the velvet ropes." Sarah's voice snapped, flat and sharp, clearly suspicious. "I told you, it's a family emergency. I will be back this evening." "No, you won't. You are under probation, and if you are not here in 1 hour, consider yourself terminated effective immediately, and you'll receive a letter from my attorney. Aisha panicked. Getting fired now, before the evidence was ready, meant losing all access to May. She had to rush back. She grabbed the micro SD chip from Elias, who was still furiously working on a decryption key. I have to go. Sarah is waiting to fire me. Keep the key, Elias. It's safer with you. She raced across the city, adrenaline fueling her fear. She pulled up to the mansion driveway, hoping she could slip past Sarah and discreetly hide the chip in the safe kitchen appliance she'd planned before being called into her duties. But as she rounded the corner of the grand foyer, she saw Sarah standing directly by the front entrance, dressed impeccably for her gala, but her eyes sharp and cold, like a predator who knows its prey has returned. Aisha froze. Sarah smiled, a slow, terrible expression of triumph. Aisha knew the chip was still taped inside her pendant, and Sarah was about to ask her to hand it over. The silence between Aisha and Sarah in the grand foyer was louder than any scream. Sarah's smile was the most terrifying thing Aisha had ever seen, a calculated expression of control. Sarah was in a shimmering emerald gown, the perfect host, ready to crush the truth before the first guest arrived. There you are, Aisha. Late. But I suppose a funeral takes priority. Now about that small matter of security. Sarah moved close, her perfume suffocating. My diamond tennis bracelet, a gift from Bing, is missing. I last saw it near the kitchen safe, where you often put things away. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding, but for my peace of mind, I need you to empty your pockets and your purse before you clock back in. This was the direct, high-stakes confrontation. Aisha's mind raced. The chip wasn't in her purse. It was with Elias, but Sarah didn't know that. Sarah was setting her up, trying to force a search where she knew the physical evidence of the security chip was hidden. Aisha stood her ground. Ma'am, I have no idea where your bracelet is. I never take anything from this home. I would be happy to be searched, but I refuse to be accused of stealing your jewelry. Sarah laughed, a chilling practice sound. Oh, sweetie, you're not refusing. I'm telling you. It's either you empty your pockets now and submit to a basic search, or I call the Beverly Hills police and have you arrested for theft and trespassing. Bing won't even know until you're in jail. The pressure was immense. Aisha knew if she submitted to the search, Sarah would find the missing microSD chip's absence. If she checked the kitchen appliance where Aisha had planned to hide it, confirming Aisha's guilt and her lies about the funeral. Aisha also knew that the clock was ticking for Elias to break the code. She needed a delay, a distraction. If I'm being accused of a crime, ma'am, then I won't speak another word without a witness present. You may call the police, but I will not submit to a private search under threat. Aisha walked directly past Sarah and into the kitchen, ignoring the furious woman behind her. She moved straight to the designated hiding spot for the chip, the unused slot on the high-end coffee maker, and pressed a small note to the back of the machine. It read, Elias has the key. Get ready. She had transferred the fight to a new battlefield, hoping Sarah's vanity would prevent her from calling the police until after her gala. The immediate crisis was averted when Sarah, realizing the police would ruin her charity gala's perfect social coverage, backed down from the arrest threat, but not the firing. She screamed at Aisha, then told her she was terminated but would be escorted out after the event. Aisha was forced to remain in the house, a ghost in her black dress, constantly watching May's guarded door. Meanwhile, Bing's plane had landed in Tokyo. Bing was settling into his sterile, high-tech hotel room, preparing for a long day of meetings. This was the quiet contrast to the chaos back home. Bing sat by the window, feeling a hollow ache he couldn't name. He missed his mother's quiet presence and the gentle routine of their tea ceremony. He kept seeing May's sad, pleading eyes from the day of the fight, a fleeting memory of genuine fear that contrasted sharply with Sarah's composed, elegant sadness. Bing tried to push the doubt away, reminding himself that Sarah was beautiful, successful, and the perfect wife for his brand. He was a billionaire. He had the perfect life. I am a success, he told himself. My wife is loyal. My mother is just old and confused. Suddenly, his private line rang, the one only used for family. It was his mother, May. Bing was instantly concerned. Mama? Ni hao, ma. Mom? Are you okay? May's voice, filtered through static and fear, was barely a whisper. Bing, wan haipa. Chin wan bierong ta bawa daizo. Bing, I'm so scared. Please don't let her take me away. The conversation was short and frantic. May could only manage fragmented, terrified sentences before the call cut out abruptly. Sarah must have discovered the hidden iPad. Bing stared at the phone. This was not the voice of a confused old woman. This was the genuine, visceral fear of a mother. The less extreme action, his mother's quiet plea, shattered his manufactured calm. He knew, deep down, that Sarah had lied. He immediately called his head of security, demanding an explanation for why his mother was crying and why her line was disconnected. The answer he received was the new crisis. The guards outside May's room confirmed Sarah had confiscated May's personal devices and was enforcing a strict no visitors policy. Bing was now truly disturbed. His wife had turned his mother into a prisoner. The next day, Aisha was still stuck in the mansion, forced to attend the charity gala as a last-minute, unpaid event coordinator to ensure Sarah could keep an eye on her until the guards could officially escort her out in the morning. Sarah was dressed like royalty, moving through the crowd with glacial grace, pretending to be the victim of a difficult mother-in-law. This was the quieter, calculated humiliation of Aisha. She made Aisha stand directly behind her at the receiving line, a symbol of her defeated staff. The public humiliation soon escalated. Sarah spotted Rhodes Sinclair, a rival billionaire's wife, looking at Aisha with curiosity. Sarah immediately pulled Aisha forward with a sharp, public smile. "Oh, Rhodes, you must meet Aisha. She was nearly fired today for attempting to steal my tennis bracelet, but I've kept her on for the optics. You know how it is. We can't have the press writing about a scandal," Sarah announced, loud enough for a nearby social reporter to hear. Aisha felt the cold burn of shame, but she refused to break eye contact with Sarah. This was the breaking point, the moment of ultimate insult. Aisha realized that Sarah's goal was not just to fire her, but to poison her reputation, making her unemployable forever. "She wants to destroy me." As Sarah turned away to greet another guest, Aisha felt a sudden, fierce determination. She wouldn't just leave. She would expose the entire conspiracy. She reached up and touched the pendant, a silent promise to May that the fight was coming. Meanwhile, back in his loft, Elias made a breakthrough. The long, frustrating hours of coding paid off. He found the back door in Bing's company security system and bypassed the proprietary encryption. The extreme moment arrived. The unedited security footage was playing on his screen. It showed everything. Sarah shouting, Sarah intentionally knocking the teapot, Sarah's pure, hateful expression, and Aisha stepping in to shield May with her body. But the footage showed something even worse. It captured Sarah leaning into the camera's blind spot earlier that day, whispering into her phone while holding the deportation papers. Elias watched the video, his jaw dropping as he understood the full scope of the plot, the elder abuse, the deportation scheme, the financial motive. He immediately sent a secure, encrypted link to the video to Aisha's burner phone, along with a simple, chilling text message. "It's worse than we thought. The whole plot is on film. Check the link now." Aisha was still standing motionless by the velvet ropes when her burner phone vibrated. She slipped it in her hand, saw the message from Elias, and felt a rush of adrenaline so powerful it nearly made her dizzy. She ducked into a small utility closet, her heart hammering as she opened the encrypted link. The unedited security footage played on the small screen. The initial confrontation with Sarah was shocking enough. Seeing the raw, unmasked hatred in Sarah's face as she yelled at May confirmed everything Aisha had suspected. She saw her own brave, quiet resistance, her body forming a protective wall. Then came the moment that made her gasp. The footage shifted to Sarah earlier that day, holding the official-looking papers, smiling cruelly as she spoke into her phone. "I told you, the second she leaves the country, Bing's control of the family trust is mine. I just need her declared unfit. That facility is perfect. They'll keep her isolated." The casual brutality of Sarah's voice, detailing her plan to essentially kill May financially and emotionally, was horrifying. It wasn't about a broken teacup. It was about billions. Aisha sank against the cold utility wall, tears finally stinging her eyes. This was the full, devastating confirmation. She wasn't fighting an angry wife. She was fighting a master financial criminal who was using elder abuse and immigration fraud to steal a fortune. May hadn't just feared a cage. She feared death, and she had been right. Aisha had the proof, but she was trapped inside the house, surrounded by Sarah's guards, with Bing on the other side of the world. She needed to get this information to Bing immediately, before Sarah could execute the final phase of her plot. She couldn't risk a phone call, knowing Sarah monitored all communications. She quickly typed out a concise, anonymous message using a random, secure email address Elias had set up for her. The subject line was chillingly simple: "The truth about your mother and the billions." The body contained a single, dramatic link to the encrypted video clip. She needed a moment of pure focus to send the file to Bing's private, unmonitored work email address. She had to take the ultimate risk, send the link, and pray Bing was not too blinded by love to click it. In his high-rise Tokyo hotel room, Bing was still reeling from his mother's frantic, cut-off phone call. He was trying to focus on his merger presentation, but his mind kept flashing back to his mother's genuine fear. He suddenly received an anonymous email on his encrypted work server, a system designed to block all spam. The subject line: "The truth about your mother and the billions." His stomach dropped. It felt like a bad joke, but the secure nature of the sender's address made him pause. He opened the email, expecting a scam. The body of the email held only a few sentences and a link. "Your wife, Sarah, is planning to have your mother deported to a facility overseas to gain full financial control of your assets." The original confrontation was staged. See the unedited security footage here. Bing felt a surge of righteous anger, dismissing it instantly as a ploy from a rival company. He almost deleted the email, thinking it was a calculated attempt to destroy his personal life ahead of his meeting. But the word deported hit him hard, connecting directly with May's terrified whisper. He took a deep, shaky breath, and against all his logical and security training, he clicked the link. The moment the video loaded, Bing's world shattered completely. He didn't see the full video yet, but he saw the snippet. Sarah, his beautiful, devoted wife, standing over his mother, yelling, calling her names. Then he saw Aisha step in, brave and silent, shielding May's body. The immediate, agonizing realization was that Aisha had been telling the truth the entire time, and he had abandoned his mother to protect his own delusion. He watched the short clip 3 times, the blood draining from his face. Sarah's lies, her sweet voice, her expensive tastes, it all clicked into place as a calculating, monstrous facade. The sight of Aisha's quiet courage made his own weakness unbearable. He realized he hadn't just made a mistake, he had empowered a snake. Bing stood up, knocking his expensive laptop onto the rug, unable to breathe. He immediately knew 2 things. The merger was irrelevant, and he had to get home immediately. He had to face the woman who saved his mother, and the woman who was planning his ruin. If you were Bing, would you fly home now, or wait for the full divorce plan? What action do you think he takes next? Let me know in the comments. Bing did not wait. The sheer physical force of the truth hit him harder than any market crash. He canceled his meetings, chartered the fastest jet, and flew nonstop back to Los Angeles, fueled by a terrifying cocktail of guilt, rage, and shame. He landed late at night, slipping past the guard gate and avoiding the main house, where Sarah was undoubtedly still basking in her gala's glow. He needed to talk to Aisha without his wife's interference. Bing used the burner phone number from the anonymous email to send a cryptic, terrifying message to Aisha's burner. "Meet me at the gazebo now. I saw the video snippet. I am home. Don't tell anyone." Aisha was still waiting in the kitchen, exhausted and defeated, preparing herself to be forcibly removed in the morning. She saw the text, and her heart leaped in her throat. This was the moment of reckoning. She slipped out the back door, her body shaking from the emotional whiplash of hope and fear. She found Bing in the dark gazebo, his face pale and etched with grief, looking less like a billionaire and more like a lost boy. "It was true, wasn't it?" Bing asked, his voice raw. "Everything you told me, everything my mother tried to tell me. She was trying to have my mother deported." Aisha nodded, relief washing over her that he was finally seeing the light. "Yes, Mr. Zhao. I have the entire footage, and I have copies of the document from her office. She planned to have Maid declared unfit to gain full control of your family trust. She only needed you out of the country." Bing slumped onto the bench, burying his face in his hands, unable to absorb the full weight of the calculated malice. "My wife tried to ruin me and kill my mother." He looked up at Aisha, seeing her quiet strength and the enormous risk she had taken. "I'm so sorry, Aisha. I should have believed you. I was blind." His shame was palpable. Aisha knew this was the turning point. He wasn't denying the truth anymore. But the full video was still with Elias, and the full story had yet to be told. The final confrontation was only hours away, and Sarah was still confident in her victory. The following morning, Bing enacted a plan with a speed and precision usually reserved for billion-dollar acquisitions. He brought May out of her guarded room, telling the security staff that the trip preparations were underway and he needed to spend time with his mother. Sarah, hungover from the gala but triumphant, watched this with a smile, assuming Bing was saying his goodbyes. May, however, looked at Bing with confusion and fear, unsure if he was part of the plot. Bing secretly arranged for Elias to send the full, unedited video file to a secure, large-format screen he had set up in his private study, ready to play. He then summoned Sarah and Aisha to the study, using the pretense of finalizing Aisha's severance pay. Sarah walked in, dressed in crisp white, radiating confidence and condescension. "Aisha, darling, this is where we say goodbye. I'm giving you a generous bonus for keeping quiet," Sarah purred, sliding a check across the desk. "Bing, why is she still here?" Bing's face was stone cold. "Before we sign the check, Aisha has one last duty: to act as the key witness in a family matter." "Sit down, Sarah. You need to watch this." Bing hit a hidden button, and the wall screen flashed to life. The unedited video started playing. Sarah's initial, hateful confrontation with May, the deliberate breaking of the tea set, and Aisha stepping in as the shield. Sarah gasped, her perfect composure cracking instantly. "What is this? This is fake. Bing, she doctored this. It's slander." But then the footage continued, showing Sarah whispering her true plans into her phone. "The second she leaves the country, Bing's control of the family trust is mine. I just need her declared unfit." The words hung in the air, a chilling, undeniable testimony of betrayal, greed, and elder abuse. Sarah flew into a primal rage, realizing her meticulous plan had collapsed around her. She lunged at the monitor, trying to smash the screen, but Bing's private security, already briefed by Bing's remote call from Tokyo, restrained her instantly. "You're finished, Sarah. Every word is recorded, dated, and time-stamped. Federal crimes, financial fraud, and elder abuse. You lose everything," Bing stated, his voice devoid of emotion. Sarah screamed, not in sadness, but in fury. "It's your fault, Bing. You were so weak. I deserved this money. You wouldn't have a name without me." "And you," she snarled, directing her hatred at Aisha, You're just a maid. You just ruined the life of a rich white woman. And you think you're going to walk away clean? I'll sue you for everything you own." Bing shook his head. "Aisha is the only person here who stands on principle. You stood on greed." Bing's ultimate confrontation was public and crushing. He immediately contacted his legal team, arranging an impromptu emergency company meeting disguised as an investor relations event. Sarah, still sputtering threats, was escorted to the event by guards who were now acting as her jailers. Bing stood on the stage, the main screen showing a slide that read immediate corporate and personal restructuring. He played the footage to the entire board, exposing Sarah's financial motives and moral turpitude, effectively neutralizing her attempts to seize control of his company assets through the trust. Within hours, the news exploded. The financial world watched in stunned silence as the glamorous American socialite was exposed as a calculated fraud and criminal. The divorce was initiated instantly on grounds of extreme cruelty and fraud, ensuring Sarah would not only lose her claim to Bing's billions, but face criminal investigation. Don't let them get away with it. Share this story with someone who needs to see the power of truth. The downfall was total and swift. Sarah's carefully constructed world of influence evaporated in a single day. Her social media accounts were taken down, her charitable organization affiliations were immediately severed, and the lavish Bel Air mansion became a frozen crime scene for forensic accountants. Sarah was served with papers outlining the permanent revocation of all privileges, including her access to the marital home. She was out, stripped of everything, left only with the clothes she wore and the venomous residue of her own pride. The quieter, more powerful moment of redemption was taking place back at the mansion. Maid was finally safe. She sat with Aisha in the sunroom, the morning sun streaming through the windows, drinking tea from the new set Bing had bought. May reached out and gently touched Aisha's hand, tears flowing freely, but these were tears of gratitude. "Nijulua, wadanua. You saved me, my daughter." May's voice was thick with emotion. Aisha felt a depth of connection she hadn't known she was missing. She was still just an employee, legally, but in the eyes of the frail woman she had risked everything for, she was family. Bing entered the room, kneeling beside his mother and taking Aisha's hand. He realized his marriage to Sarah had been a prison built of gold. Aisha's presence was the quiet key to his freedom. He saw her courage, her moral compass, and her unwavering loyalty, qualities his wife had never possessed. The less dramatic event was Bing making immediate arrangements for May's permanent residency in the U.S., securing her a visa that protected her completely. He made sure she had access to the best doctors and caregivers, reversing all of Sarah's malicious paperwork. He watched Aisha and May interacting, noticing the genuine love and respect that flowed between them. He realized the most important asset he had nearly lost wasn't his money. It was the kindness and integrity that Aisha brought into his life. He knew his world had changed forever, and the future he had planned was now meaningless. The final twist arrived not with a financial maneuver, but with a quiet, heartfelt gesture. Bing officially signed the final document to create the Mei Zhao Foundation for Elder Care, redirecting a significant portion of the family trust to support vulnerable elders. He sat across from Aisha in his study, ready to sign her final, generous severance package. "Aisha, the money is for your loyalty, but it's not enough," Bing said, looking directly into her eyes for the first time without shame. "You didn't just save my mother. You saved me from a life built on a lie. You taught me the value of integrity over image, something no one in my world ever dared to do." Aisha, prepared for her goodbye, simply waited. "I'm building a new life, Aisha, a new company, a new way of doing things. And I need a partner, not a maid, not an employee, but a true partner in life and in purpose." Bing slid the severance paper away and replaced it with a new document. A proposal for a chief operations officer role for the new foundation, complete with a massive equity stake in the company and a salary that instantly made her financially secure for life. But that wasn't the twist. The ultimate surprise arrived when he stood up, walking around the desk to stand before her. He looked past her race, past her profession, and saw only the powerful heart that saved his mother. Aisha, I know what I was looking for, and I found it in the one person who wasn't looking for me. It's not about wealth, it's about worth. I don't want you to be my employee. I want you to be my equal. Will you take this first step with me, and together build something based on love and respect, not just for the foundation, but for our future? Aisha's eyes, which had remained dry through all the confrontations, finally filled with tears of pure, empowering hope. She had faced down greed and hatred and won. She accepted the partnership, the beginning of a true, unexpected family built on kindness, with May at its heart. The true black, Maid became the woman who stood for love, respect, and was now his true partner. Did justice prevail? Subscribe for more stories that prove kindness always wins.